Make large crypto trades with Kraken OTC, execute orders of more than 100,000 off the open exchange through our premium OTC trading service. Get 24/7 access to deep liquidity, minimal slippage, and competitive execution and settlement services. Private and secure trading options include chatting securely with our trade desk for a personalized high-touch service, or use our self-service RFQ for super fast, automated OTC trading. Non-investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss and is offered to U.S. customers through Payward Interactive Inc. For more information, go to realvision.com/Kraken OTC.
Well, hello again for another week of REKT Vision. Here again with OSF, who's looking remarkably different since last week. Went for a complete makeover, it looks like. Fully shaved, fully haircut. You look about 12 years old. It's going to be interesting to see how it all grows back over the coming weeks.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, felt like it was due a change. The long hair lifestyle was getting very frustrating in the British summer and having a baby and all that. So yeah, I was sort of like mandated to have a haircut.
You want to look like a young dad, did you?
I wanted to look like a young dad. I just wanted to feel young again. That's what it was. I was like, do I still have some resemblance of youth? And here we are.
Yeah, well, you clearly do. You look like you're going to be checked for ID at a pub at the moment. Anyway, we'll get into it because there's also been a bit of a crazy week again in the markets. Hopefully today we break the curse and we don't get absolutely wrecked as the show goes live. It did get wrecked though after last Friday's show. We were speaking about how some of the things facing crypto were slightly more medium term and that a drop might not just lead to automatic buying. There'd been that 60K to 70K range, which could have just traded basically the last 6 months. And at this time felt slightly different. I think a few people probably thought we'd lost our nerve, but that it did actually kind of completely break over that weekend. People got very, very nervous about crypto. And a range of different things were looked at. But by Monday, we had Bitcoin trading at 49K. We had Solana trading about 109, 110. We had ETH trading at 2,000. Huge moves, 30 to 40% moves, especially that week. It feels like the main things driving it was the unwind of Japanese carry trade, which I think a few people have spoken about since Monday. But this was the trade that we had flagged before, kind of the weakness in the yen. And it was a trade that I didn't think would hit crypto as hard because not many people are doing this trade where you borrow in yen and you buy risk assets. That being said, there's a lot of contagion, and crypto being the only market open that weekend, I felt like a lot of people who've been doing this potentially in tech stocks or in fixed income, they just felt like crypto was a good thing to smash lower. And we saw some horrific wicks. The Nikkei opened, I think its lowest 2 days in like 40 years. It was down about 12% on that Monday. And things completely fell out of bed by the European morning. Time in NASDAQ opened again, we kind of rebounded. And we're now sitting here at 60K roughly on Bitcoin, which is kind of where we were at last week's show. Like it was 61 and a half or 61 area. So maybe down about 2% week on week. Solana was around 155, which is where it is now. The one that's really underperformed is ETH, which is still hanging out around 2,600 now, which is quite a big dip lower. What did you make of the last week? Do you think now that we've had that massive freak out, it's kind of in the rear view mirror?
It's a weird one. The weirdest thing to me, or kind of like the scariest thing, is the VIX hitting levels that we haven't seen since COVID or the Great Financial Crisis. Like the VIX, I think, hit as high as 61 was it on Monday or Tuesday? 65, geez. Was it Monday or Tuesday? I think it was Monday. Right? Yeah.
Monday.
So these are like insane levels. And then, there was that funny meme someone was posting, which was like, showed you like the VIX, and it's sort of like this, and then there's like one big spike, and there's another big spike, and then there's another big spike, and the first spike says like GFC, the second spike says COVID, and the third spike says slightly weak payrolls number. Is what the third spike says. So like to me, like I guess we know, like we had that payroll stuff, we had the recession fears, and then we had this unwind of the yen carry trade. But to cause a spike in the VIX of that magnitude, comparing it to the two largest market crashes we've seen in the last 15 years is pretty crazy. And so you can you can look at it two ways. You can look at it one way saying, well, that was crazy. That's weird. I can't believe everyone just freaked out over that. And now we've rallied back and we just move on. That's one way to look at it. The second way to look at it, which I think I'm more in the camp of, is that's an insight into how much leverage there is like in this system now. And that was just like people told me, all my TradFi friends tell me it was like CTA driven. No one could really work it out, but it really was like kind of scary to see. Whenever you see an unwind like that, a liquidity cascade like that, it means people are just too long. People have too much risk on, and they probably have it on with leverage. And we know that was the case given, the yen carry trade. And, apparently Bloomberg reported during the week that 50 to 60% of that trade had been unwound. And then we had the BOJ saying they wouldn't raise rates in times of market instability. But to me, it just feels like the market rhetoric has sort of changed from 2 years ago when like everyone was down in the dumps, super bearish, worried about recessions, worried about rising rates, and no one really had the risk on. Whereas now we're sort of like quite late into the cycle and quite late into this crazy move in tech stocks where everyone's like, oh, AI is amazing. We're all chasing these like extra gains on these $1 trillion market cap companies, and we're just using leverage to go gig along to like get the extra juice. It kind of feels more like that to me now, kind of like how it was do you remember when the market like crashed in 2018? I think the market crashed. And then again, like in 2022, I guess, when people just like, when rates here were low and people just had like crazy amounts of leverage and were taking all these crazy risks just to chase like any bit of return. And I don't know, I just don't think you see a move like that and it goes away forever, or it goes away for a long time. And that's what's got me feeling a little bit concerned.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. Moves like that, we have seen this sort of not full V-shaped recovery, but clearly Bitcoin and Solana, like I said, are kind of back to roughly where they were at this week's show. They'd obviously had a bad week before that, but definitely seen a bit of recovery. 277,000 traders were liquidated on Monday. I think over $1 billion was liquidated in a day. Had huge liquidations, even the week prior to that as well. So to me, that's a sort of move where you kind of just have to take a step back and know that a lot of people probably got burnt in the last week on that move. Some people will throw in the towel. I think it's a little bit tough for crypto. In terms of macro, I think JP Morgan made that estimate about 50 to 60%. I think no one really knows. Like this yen carry trade has been going on for many, many, many years. It's kind of unclear the state of dollar asset ownership by either the Japanese banks or individuals out there. So I think it's still a bit unclear. What I do think is that crypto probably is not the place which feels the full force of this. I do think what you're saying there, that when I started bringing up what's really run up, particularly on this trade, has been tech stocks. People borrowing cheap in yen and buying risk assets like tech stocks. I don't think many people are doing like margin loans in crypto. And I think that there is, you just get taught to buy every single dip in the Magnificent Seven, buy every single dip in tech stocks. My guess, we had some people talking for an emergency 75-bip rate cut on Monday. Like people went absolutely crazy. The Fed is not going to do an emergency rate cut. And I saw a Bloomberg poll today which said economists think they're only going to cut it by a quarter point next month. So I think volatility could be here to stay for the next month. I'd be more wary on tech stocks than I would on crypto, just given the relative performance of both of them, and also where I see that yen carry trade still probably has some pain to unwind, if I'm honest. Bitcoin volatility is at a 2-year high. It looks, obviously the VIX is volatility. It's the volatility index. That going all the way to COVID levels is crazy. It just tells me that volatility is going to be back. I'd be a little bit more wary if you're doing anything in leverage, that you probably are going to have to hold through some bigger swings, it feels like at the moment. It was something that I think people had seen coming. I remember Rauk even on our show and was talking about, that's the thing to look out for. I think the violence of the initial reaction people didn't necessarily see. My guess is, that crypto's slightly more insulated to a fallout in tech stocks here, just because I don't think that's where the majority of that trade is happening. But it's still a little bit scary, and I think we probably have until the next Fed meeting to kind of see the end of it. Next week we have CPI, which I think a lot of people will be looking at, and could go both ways. What do you make of that CPI figure? What it could mean for crypto?
It's a tough one because we've been kind of like geared towards thinking low is good now for the last 3 years, possibly even 4 years, probably 3 years, I would say. And now is that still the same? Because we saw how much things panicked when we had that really low payrolls number. And if we had that number maybe 6 months ago, I think markets would have rallied, right? Because it would have been, oh, wow, the Fed's really going to cut rates. But the market actually panicked on that payrolls number. So for me now, if inflation comes like materially lower, I think the markets will not take it that well. I think they'll be a little bit scared. I think if it comes marginally higher, I think the markets will be okay with it because, we're talking about 3% inflation here. We're not talking about, the levels that we saw back in 2022 and 2023. We're talking about 3% inflation. So the number coming at like 3.1% versus 3% expectations is not really like that big a miss. And that shows you that the economy is still like has a bit of strength in it. I think 3.3 was the last month actually, and 3.2 is the expectation for this month. So the expectation for last month. So, but if it comes in low, if it comes in at like 3 or 2 handle, I think people are like, oh fuck, like this is starting to get a little bit dicey now in terms of recession fears, and the Fed gets put in a tough spot. Well, the Fed's not put in a tough spot because the Fed will just cut rates. The real toughest spot the Fed gets put in is if it comes in a lot higher, like 3.5 or 3.6, while you have those weak payroll numbers, then it's just like, oh no.
Yeah, I think any extreme outcome would be bad. I do think that low inflation here, like something that comes in materially lower, the real worry also on Monday, I mean, there's a lot of things. Yen carry trade unwinding. There still is, fears about Iranian attack on Israel, which over the weekend crypto was trading on. It felt like recession fears was the big one, though. It felt as though alongside the Japanese yen, people were suddenly thinking the US was about to dive into recession. We've seen some better economic data in terms of initial jobless claims this week. But if we have a really low CPI figure, people will assume that's another signal for a more harder landing. I don't think many people are calling for like a complete collapse of the US economy. I think it was growing at 2.8% last quarter, but it does feel as though there are questions over that soft landing and how crypto would react in a recession. Most people think it would do well. It depends, but I think at least the initial reaction could be a little bit lower. Obviously, the bullish take here is that we're probably going to see more stimulus in every single scenario, and that you're meant to buy all dips. But you just saw how violent that move can be on the first pieces of bad news as we get towards that. That was a move from 70K to 49K. That's a huge move in Bitcoin, and most altcoins got absolutely destroyed in that move. So definitely one to be aware of. I'd be a buyer of volatility in crypto, I still think, for the next month or two. We did see out of the majors, as I just said, like Bitcoin and Solana did retrace pretty well. Although they had a bad week beforehand, we're kind of back to where we were. ETH was the one that really fell out of bed. Now, we've been a bit more bullish on, I think we like the story for all three, but we've definitely been more bullish on Solana on this show for the last week. Sol ETH broke out to a new all-time high this week. It broken through a resistance it had hit at around 7 times, I think, before, and broke out to the upside. It's retraced a little bit today, that ratio. What do you make of it here? Like, ETH is now, at one stage, it raised all of its 2024 gains I think it was on Monday.
I think we've spoken about the whole ETH trade at length on the show, and I think I've sort of transformed from being bullish at the beginning to sort of giving up hope towards the end. And I think, I think the whole market just gave up hope on it. Really, you had lackluster ETF flows. it was kind of good because the grayscale stuff was selling fast, but then it just realized, we realized no one really cared about like the tiny amount of flows that were occurring in terms of the inflow outflow number.
Beating the Bitcoin ETF though, this week at least, and
yeah, that's true. But I mean, like you look at the amount that Jump sold, and it's just like a lot has had to be absorbed by the ETF. So I don't know. It was already struggling with the narrative. I think the ETF stuff disappointed. It happened at a time. The ETF happened at a time of like crazy market volatility, and you had the ETH Foundation also selling all year, and I think selling some more as well. And I think there was some more FUD around like other people needing to sell as well. I don't know if that ever really materialized.
Yeah, some very old wallets were moving.
Old wallets moving.
2 billion move from the Chinese police or something like that.
Yeah. So, is it over for ETH? I think
that's not what I said. I just said which one here now that Sol's. Do you think
I was saying it's over for ETH because that's what I've been asking myself a lot. But I don't think it is, and I think this may be a good entry point for ETH versus Bitcoin and Solana, but it's not something that I feel like I'm comfortable now holding long term anymore, because before it felt like you can own Bitcoin and ETH. ETH is the higher beta version of Bitcoin. ETH is the best programmable money version. But if you look at the performance of Sol versus ETH, the cycle, it's just been a crazy outperformance. And now that's just kind of proven the theory to me that you can't really, away from Bitcoin, you can't really be an L1 maximalist of anything. And it's not long before something can get displaced pretty quickly. So with that in mind, it's like, well, do I really believe I can hold ETH for like 10 years when there's just so much competition? The conclusion was that for me, ETH has fallen outside of my long-term holds because I think it's been proven that it can be displaced by something else. Bitcoin can never be displaced by anything else, I feel like. Like Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It has so many different properties that actually none of the other coins have. And I know it's funny because the feature of apparently the other coins are the properties they have that Bitcoin doesn't have. So yeah, like ETH is falling out my long-term holds. I think I like holding Bitcoin and Solana right now. And knowing that Solana could also be displaced by something else next year or next cycle or whatever. So that's kind of where I stand on that now, which is a big change for me. Like I've never really held Bitcoin. ETH has always been my main holding. I've been dabbling in Solana pretty heavily this year as well, but I think that's a big change for me.
That is a big change. I think you maybe not displace is not the right word, but it can definitely be competed against on some of its main things, and that makes the valuation, I think, a little bit more tricky at times. I still like owning all three because I like to own all three, and I think there's obviously some things about ETH with its inflation is much better than Solana, for example, and people would arguably say decentralization is better. But I agree that over the next years, decades, I think we're always going to see new, faster, quicker L1s. There's always questions about it. And I think there are questions about some of the old L1s from last cycles where they're just tougher holds. Interestingly, we'll go into the next topic there, which is about XRP, which was one of the main L1s of the last cycle. They actually settled with the SEC this week. XRP rallied 20%. I don't think it's kind of back lower again today. It looks like this was seen as a very lenient judgment here. 125 million. The SEC were asking for billions, and looks like their liability is limited on future attacks against securities breaches. It doesn't look like the SEC is going to try. Well, reportedly is going to appeal this, but I think the main thing that rallied on the back of this again was Solana. I think this generally is being seen as Ripple was a pretty centralized entity, which kind of made a lot of mistakes during the release of XRP, and even they weren't really taken down. So the idea of going after other ones, which are perhaps a little bit more cautious, is going to be more difficult. Do you think this is? First, do you think this is bullish for Ripple? Is it going to come back? And then secondly, do you think this is just bullish for crypto?
It's definitely bullish for crypto. I don't know if it's that bullish for Ripple. Like it feels like we've had the surprise factor of this news flow, I think, within the last couple of years or so. I think 3 years ago, it didn't look great. And then as this case has progressed, it seems increasingly likely that Ripple would win. And we've had some news flow with regard to that in the past as well. So yeah, like sure, getting away with this fine, small fine is a great outcome. Once again, shows like the weakening grip of the SEC, but it doesn't feel like it has that surprise factor that maybe it once had a year ago. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it was rumored for a while that this was coming. And there have been lots of like mini pumps in XRP in anticipation of this, and already it feels like that's kind of been sold down. It's down kind of 10% from that peak. If you actually zoom out, if you look at like the 5-year chart here, XRP has barely moved over like, I think it's kind of at levels from 2021, maybe even like close to the peaks of 2020. So yeah, it's I think that's what people are scared about with L1s, is that sometimes they can just be seen as old tech in many scenarios, and it's definitely something that I maybe failed to appreciate until this cycle. Really, it does feel as though they might appeal, although there's been a lot of talk this week again of softening of the Democrats' approach to crypto. There was a Harris for crypto campaign, which is kind of being led by Mark Cuban alongside other crypto advocates, definitely trying to push more into being supportive of crypto. Reportedly, I saw from Tyler Winklevoss today, she didn't even turn up to the first meeting of this group, which I thought was pretty funny. But do you think crypto is anything to really be super afraid of now this cycle? And I know we might have a preference, but do you think now we're going to see a better scenario in both cases? Because it also feels like Kamala's chances are going up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the question is crypto as big a deal as we think it is when we live and breathe crypto and we're so fixated on the things they say about crypto? When Trump has mentioned it like twice, and obviously he came to the Bitcoin conference, Kamala hasn't mentioned it once, and she's not even turning up to these meetings. So I think Trump has used it really for like a way to get donations. Like very clearly, he's probably gotten a large amount of donations. I don't know. Like, there's not enough meat on the bone for me to say that there's going to be some form of bipartisan support. Like, I think I've said like the stuff that Trump has been saying is extremely, extremely bullish for crypto. These are big structural changes, and they are. But if he gets elected, we also have to see the implementation of some of these policies, and how long does that take to actually implement? Like, is it days, weeks, months? Is it years? Is it going to be a priority for him? Is it not? Like, these are all unknown factors. So I kind of feel like even if he gets elected, we'll get this like great big rally. But then for me, that may be like a local or potentially even cycle top that election, because I think I have a gut feeling people may be disappointed by how long it takes for these things to be implemented. Yeah. And we just don't know anything about the Democrats really. We know they're exploring it and looking into it, but we have no idea really what their true stance on it is, apart from what we've seen for the last 4 years, which has been a strong stance against crypto. So
yeah, but crypto did hit an all-time high in that process as well. Bitcoin did, at least. I guess what I'm trying to say with what you said, I don't think it's going to be as good as everyone thinks it will be under Trump. Just like you said, there'll be delays in implementation, and it probably won't be his first piece of policy, for example, or maybe even like his fifth piece of policy. And it probably won't be as bad as people think it would be under Kamala versus, let's say, Biden. I do think that this, over the short term, though, I don't buy into it. This whole crypto for Harris thing just feels like her trying to defend what is clearly like a populist movement for kind of Trump. He's got a lot of popular support with it, at least in crypto, which is a remarkable number of holders in the US. And she probably feels slightly outmaneuvered, so she's done this. But to not even turn up, and apparently it was a video meeting, so all she had to do was get a Zoom link and turn up, and she didn't, which it just feels like this isn't really that genuine. And there's clearly going to be people in that her administration which are not going to be pro crypto. So this short-term move feels very political without much substance to me, to be honest, from Kamala. Even though I don't think her presidency will mean like the end of crypto by any means. I kind of feel like people get a little bit too crazy on like the medium term impact of these things.
Yeah.
Then I think the other things that we wanted to hit on was mainly the ETF side of the stuff. So we saw Solana get a new ETF potentially in Brazil. That was the first ETF globally. It looks like it's going to be approved. And then secondly, which I think could be a big unlock for crypto, is Morgan Stanley is going to allow its advisors or wealth management advisors to now push for crypto. Now, Morgan Stanley is one of the biggest wealth advisors in the US. There had been some talk about some of these bigger wealth management companies or asset management companies were waiting to do due diligence on the Bitcoin ETF, see how it fared over the first few months before allowing their advisors to start selling it to clients. Morgan Stanley now doing this, I think, will push a lot of the major wealth management companies in the US to buy Bitcoin. This got me pretty bulled up. In terms of what could be unlocked on the second half of this year in terms of demand for crypto, X kind of global liquidity going higher, I saw this, and I saw that the FTX estate also looks like it's going to be giving back 12.7 billion, or was ordered to by a judge this week. Do you think we're in for a stronger bout of demand, maybe post elections where we see the majority of the gains? But do you think this is now setting us up for a strong H2?
Look, I think it's funny because we have often been talking about H2, the second half of the year, etc., etc. I mean, we're in the middle of August now. Nothing happens in summer. And then you have September, October, November, December. Nothing happens during Christmas time. So you really have like 3 to 4 months left until the end of the year. Right around election time, which is a time of uncertainty, there's probably going to be very tepid trading and risk deployment in the months building up to it, I think. So I don't know, I don't really have crazy expectations for the rest of this year. I think if Trump builds a lead and wins, I think crypto rallies into that. I think risk rallies into that, actually. And then we'll see what happens afterwards. And then on the flip side, if he doesn't win, I think risk sells off a little bit. But I don't know, I just feel like with levels where they are right now, I feel like I'm not bearish. I want to emphasize that I'm not bearish, but I think I'm cautious. This is different. This is different to a year ago where it's like, let's just go gung ho and get balls deep in risk. It was a year ago, Michael, when we were like buying Pepe and like selling like ETH for like higher beta stuff, right? Like we're like, let's get down the risk curve and have some real risk on, because we're like, super bullish for the next 12 months. That's not where we are right now, I don't think. I feel like I want to own defensive things, maybe even sell into strength, because I just think things are uncertain and we're just at levels. We had 2 killer years for stocks. And NASDAQ was up almost 40% last year. It's up almost 20% this year. Like, those are 2 big years. Is it going to be up another 20% next year, having had one of the worst pullbacks we've seen for many years?
Correction.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just, for me, it's like, I'm not saying you should sell. I'm not saying you should be short, because that's a very different message. But should you be balls deep long risk with leverage right now? No. Like, should you have been balls deep long risk, maybe not leverage, but like high beta stuff a year ago? Yes. And I think that's changed. Like, I think my positioning has changed as well as a result of that. It's like, I want to own more defensive things. I want to sell into strength. Like, I feel like I want to have more stables now to be ready to buy any dips. Like,
yeah.
No, I just think the story is changing a little bit here. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. And you even saw that, Bitcoin and Solana in particular was one of the best performers off the bottom. It beat a lot of altcoins, beat a lot of meme coins even, which tells you the first thing that people want to buy are probably the majors, and you can hold them through the volatility. I think, even if we do see a bit more volatility in stocks, I agree with that sentiment. I think we have both kind of consolidated more into majors over the last few months. I personally think that we will see a strong rally post the election. I still think that Trump will win, and I think we'll see a rally, because I also think global liquidity is going higher, and that will be the another tailwind for the market. So I think, let's say in the banana zone scenario, I still think that it may be delayed until after the election. That's kind of what I said last week. We will kind of go into the left curve corner section now, which is kind of going into the more high risky stuff, and maybe we'll get a better judge of what's been going on. We have this cool graphic now to describe the left curve corner. Number one actually, we'll just wait for that one to close. Yeah, number one, here we are. So there was another Trump coin this week. The Trump theme coin, which was RTR, was the name of the coin, Restore the Republic coin, was announced yesterday. There was a lot of furore about it. Went up to 150 million straight up the gate. It was launched by a team which was kind of known in the NFT space, attached to the Kangpai Pandas, which had some advisors that previously worked at the previous White House administration with Trump. It was looking like it was going to get a Trump endorsement, and then was pulled out last minute, dropped 95%. A lot of people on crypto Twitter this week were very, very annoyed about this. This has been the second or third Trump-related meme coin which has had a similar move like this. We had one which was apparently linked to Barron Trump, and another one also linked to Trump Jr., which also has fallen pretty dramatically off the back of this. A lot of people on crypto Twitter were annoyed about this and kind of thought that this might actually shift the sentiment, which has been so incredibly pro-Trump, to maybe not being as pro-Trump, because this is the third time or fourth time people have been hurt on Trump-related meme coins, where clearly the team had been speaking to the Trump family, and there was like a semi-endorsement, which is maybe pulled at the end. It looks like they're going to announce Eric Trump and Trump Jr. said they were going to announce something DeFi related for next week. But the Trump family in general, they are not in anyone's good books. It feels like Donald Trump has kind of been away from it all, but I think people have assumed that a Trump family endorsed coin would basically have his endorsement. And this was another major issue. We'll kind of maybe go back to that at the end, OSF, because I know you probably have some thoughts. The second thing to bring up was Sui. Sui was the leader in L1s this week. I know they're spoken about quite a lot here at Real Vision. I know they've been a sponsor of the show. They got a Grayscale trust, actually, which is kind of what obviously happened with ETH and Bitcoin, and actually Solana as well. But that led the gains. It was up about 30% this week. A lot of talk about that maybe even being the L1 for next year, or the L1 for maybe even next cycle. Obviously, people get bullish around Sui on things like its interoperability with AI. And perhaps we need 4 years for that to be shown up. But definitely a bullish week for Sui. It led all the gains in L1s. And I think people are perhaps looking past Solana now for what could be the Solana killer, so to speak. Third thing for the left curve corner was meme coins. Actually, were the only sector of altcoins in the green this cycle. I know a lot of people are hating on this, but most coins on Monday erased all of their 2024 gains or were negative. If you actually look through the top 100 coins, it is a bloodbath for all the different sectors. The only ones in the green here were meme coins and the L1s, things like Bitcoin, ETH, Solana. If you were in the vast majority of other coins here, you've had a very, very bad cycle. I think on the L1s, obviously, Sui has rebounded this week. It might be flat now for the year. Ton has had a strong cycle, but crazy to look at that it was only really meme coins and the majors which are up this cycle. I know everyone feels it, but when you see that on a page, I just thought it was pretty remarkable.
What does that mean now? Does that mean there's still good trades, or does it mean that it's a good short opportunity?
I don't know. I looked at this and I thought, do you fight the trend and look for some of these other things? Now it feels like meme coins perhaps you've seen fewer gainers. It does feel like there's been some improvements in kind of DeFi, let's say, value share with some of the fee sharing things that have been voted through recently. And obviously to see things like Sui bounce, maybe this is the time to start picking up some L1s. I saw that on the timeline a little bit more. People looking at, say, Sui, Ton even to buy on that dip. But yeah, it does it does make you question. It does make you question all the different use cases of crypto. There were some really good graphics were shared, which were like all the versions of these coins last cycle and how many of them are still going, and most of them like you've never heard of. So I do think there's also that there's always new coins each cycle which kind of do what the last coin did slightly better, but yeah, they still don't do great. Anyway, the fourth thing we will talk about for meme coins in particular was MOG. MOG is probably, I don't know, it feels like it's been a crypto culture coin more than just a meme coin. That's one of the only ones that really bounced like 100% off the lows. It does feel like even with ETH going lower, people still reach for some of these ETH beta coins. These have been the only ones that have kind of outperformed even as EVM has gone lower. So MOG and Pepe, but particularly MOG, seems to be one that is doing well. Amber Group, which is a well-known trading firm, looks like they bought 2 million this week. And then finally, we have DGODs. I'll wait for the next graphic. For number 5, we have DGODs, which looks like they're going to kind of buck the trend in NFTs. They were up 150% nearly this week. Looks like they're going to change their strategy, look at things from a meme coin perspective, change all their socials to being now through Telegram, which is where a lot of the meme coins have been going through. They flipped a bunch of different NFTs in this move. It feels as though treating NFTs like meme coins is perhaps one of the only ways to kind of get people build up again on NFTs, it feels like. But I just thought this was interesting for anyone who's kind of looking for ways which NFT projects can come back pretty strongly. Which of those jumped out to you, though? I know we just spoke briefly about meme coins, but any of those you kind of want to focus on? I know the Trump coin was quite a big one this week. Do you think that's changed the sentiment of CT against Trump?
I think it has. I mean, I lost a lot of money yesterday on this Trump coin. Like, I really thought it was the one. Like, there were so many rumors. Like, soon as like it had launched, like pretty much like every group chat had this contract address, and there were like so many rumors about this is real. This is going to be the legit one. It's being launched by a legit team, and Donald Trump Jr. is going to tweet about it, etc. So, when it was at like 50 to 100 million market cap, I was like, wow, this really could be like the generational opportunity of this cycle, like managing to buy, being at the screens when the potentially an official, no, maybe not like the Trump coin, but at some sort of official Trump coin would launch. And then, I think lots of people thought the same way, and they were just like, there's a ton of volume. It's $150 million in volume in an hour of it, this launching. And yeah, just like, I guess like 2 hours up from it having launched, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. both tweeted out saying this is not like an official thing. Watch out for scam tokens or whatever. And then it just puked 95%.
And they definitely have been involved in it, right? It's very, very clear that they've been speaking about it. The website actually had like different things involved with them in terms of prizes if it hits certain market caps. It just felt as though they couldn't just wash their hands of this one and say, oh, we didn't. There've been previous coins which have been linked to the Trump family where there was deniability. Whereas here it felt like something has happened here and a lot of people lost money. If it had been a Trump coin, where do you think it would have gone?
I think it would have been like 500 million to $1 billion market cap. Like, you could see like a lot of the other Sol meme coins were already selling off as people were chasing this. I think it would have been a big liquidity suck, and I think it would have gone pretty high. Probably would have got some exchange listings because it was doing so much volume. That was why I was thinking. I was like, even at 100 mil, this could be like a 5 to 10x. So yeah, it was just crazy that it just turned out to be not real. But if you go to the website, as you said, like it's like dinner, meet and greet with Donald Jr. Like, they're clearly, that doesn't exist unless like the team that ran it, which by the way have been like in the space for a few years, they're on like a successful NFT project, legit like docs American citizens, unless they're just completely making the entire thing up. The website's restoretherepublictoken.com. Unless they're completely making like the whole thing up. The Trumps have done something weird here. And I think you're right. To your point, this has changed. I think this has changed. It's restored the Republic token.com. Yeah.
You've been on that quite a lot of times, have you?
Yeah. I do think it's changed CT's perception a little bit of this whole Trump thing. You know, like for me personally, like I lost a lot of money on this, and it sounds like I lost money because the Trumps just bailed out of this thing last minute. And I'm just like, damn, this is, well, this sucks. Like they clearly don't really, care about it. And that's why I've kind of like changed my tune on the Trump thing a little bit as well, because I know like everyone knows he's just being opportunistic to get votes. He's just doing it to get donations. Like everyone knows that. But then, you know, the optimist in me is always like, you know, maybe there's like a 10% chance he goes out there and does something. But, you know, when you have his like,
if he gets in, but I agree, this is not a good look.
When you have something like this, you're just like, it just makes you feel a lot of remorse beyond the point of, I actually don't even care if it's bullish for crypto now. I just don't like want these guys, you know, anywhere near I don't know, anywhere near me. Shit's going to happen.
You get between people and their money. That's not a good place to be. And it feels as though that's happened a few times now with crypto. Like when you call the crypto community and you're promoting it, but then when you're also kind of making money from it, or maybe getting close to making money from it various different times, obviously there's a huge speculative aspect which people are chasing crazy gains here. And obviously people are in it to gamble to a large extent in this meme coin space. But I don't know, I'm reading through the timeline and that was a lot of core, core CT, we would say, which is a lot of core crypto culture, which got hurt in this coin.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was not what I would do if I was trying to court the crypto community.
I mean, I bought it because I was like, there's no way they rug this with like the reputational damage, and Trump's all pro crypto. And then I get, you know, it's like there's 1% chance they rug it, and obviously it happened. So it is what it is. Yeah. Should we go on to some questions with the last?
Yeah, let's do some questions.
This is from Sarah on the Real Vision website. Another week, REKT Vision, another week, REKT. I feel you on that, Sarah. Guys, maybe you need to rebrand to Banana Vision, and it might bring us some luck. Not a bad idea. We should maybe experiment with calling the show Banana Vision next week and see if we can instigate some sort of market rally.
We need to get Raoul back.
We do. I know
he had like his own emergency meeting, I think, on Monday because things got so bad. And then we were in a group chat with him. Like, by the end of the day, everything was just ripping back, and then basically back to where we were last week. But this, I think the banana zone is coming. I agree with him on that. I think the timing of it is more difficult, and I think before the election, there's just so much uncertainty right now, particularly for crypto. But I do think any resolution of the crypto of the election, I actually think will rally if Kamala gets in. I think the markets like certainty; they can really get behind things with certainty, and they'll believe a narrative that she's going to be more soft on crypto than Biden, and we'll rally on most scenarios because global liquidity is going high.
All right, Shafiq on the Real Vision website, with Jump Trading getting rid of ETH, how does this affect Solana Firedancer? From what I understand, that they're still fully working on Firedancer and it hasn't impacted that. But do you understand anything different, or? Yeah,
people were checking on that, like on the GitHub or whatever repo they're using, and they're still working on it. So that hasn't really changed. In fact, I think that those contracts for many, many years, and they're probably paid in locked Solana. People have said this was the shutdown of their development fund rather than necessarily their trading arm. Look, they're a market maker for many different altcoins. Altcoins, as we just showed, are all down 60 to 70%. Or a large number of them are just got absolutely destroyed. It's probably not been the best environment to be a market maker for altcoins, if I'm honest. And they obviously got investigated by the CFTC about 2 months ago. And the CEO left. It's entirely possible that someone came in and said, like, why are we involved in this business? Banks shut down businesses like that all the time. There was some talk that this may have been coordinated, like them smashing down ETH to buy Solana could have been what happened. I know that ETH wallets were tracked. I don't know if people were tracking their Solana wallets. I didn't see one person who showed up their Solana wallets on Arkham. So I don't know what their Solana wallets are, but people had said that potentially that's what they were doing. And that was the reason why Sol ETH moved so much this week. But it does feel as though their allegiance to Solana is still intact, at least in the short term. Maybe that's contractual. Who knows?
Okay. Next question. Solana has been under attack recently. Lots of YouTubers are attacking it for basically misreporting their TPS and adoption metrics. Do you think Sol is a house of cards, or is it just jealous FUD from Cardano investors?
I think the main thing of FUD around Solana is about the inflation. So Solana the total inflation is around 6 to 7% a year, although it is going to be decreasing to around 1.5%, I think, when it gets to its terminal level. And a lot of people who are using Solana don't realize that it's fast and cheap because it has that inflation. Like that's how the validators are paid to a certain extent. And people are scared that it won't be able to keep those sort of metrics when that inflation slows down. In fact, if you actually bring up the ultrasound money, there should be a good website to bring up, ultrasoundmoney.com.
Ultrasound.money, I think.
Oh, ultrasound.money. They've added Solana to here, which I think is I heard that they had. Oh, maybe they haven't. But yeah, Solana inflation is obviously pretty high compared to the other two. So people are a little bit worried about that versus ETH and Bitcoin. I do think though that the TPS is obviously less than the maximum TPS. People have spoken about like $1 million TPS when Firedancer gets put onto mainnet, but that will never really get used. It's kind of almost like a meme that it will ever get used to that extent. So I agree. I still think Solana is so much better than other chains from the adoption cycle, on the adoption curve. I'm not married to it though, in no way. I think that's the main thing. Like a lot of people in crypto get married to the L1 or married to some idea, and I think that's one of the main issues in crypto. Is that if you're at the bleeding edge of tech, you can't just buy one coin and think it's going to be relevant or the best coin for the next 10 years. Like it's just the nature. And I think that makes it difficult sometimes from an investing standpoint, that you have to consider that maybe there'll be something new coming at some stage.
Okay, next question from Melvin on the Real Vision website. With so much uncertainty in macro have reduced from memes to majors, smart. At what point do you think it's time to go risk on again and start adding to the big memes? I think that's a good question.
A week before the election, I would look to do that, or 2 weeks before the election.
Yeah, the difficulty I'm having with that whole space is I don't know what to buy now because there are so many memes. And especially on Solana, liquidity is so fragmented across so many different memes. So it's sort of like, if you want to prepare for it, if you have a longer term trading style, and you want to prepare for something, you can't really buy something now in preparation for that, because who knows in 2 weeks time, let alone 6 months time, 3 months time, like a different thing may be the meta and a different thing may have value. So away from stuff like that's been around for a long time, like Pepe and Mog, but they seem to be losing their beta. It's tough to really know, I think.
There's been some talk about the fact that if Trump gets in, the biggest gain, and then let's say potentially you see some form of crypto legislation come through, the biggest gainers are really the DeFi coins. Like those are the ones that like suddenly these protocols could potentially be used for various different assets if we securitize funds and put them on chain and that sort of stuff. And they've all been massively beaten up, and they've all moved to kind of fee sharing models. It looks like Ovie and Maker have moved to them this week. I don't know. I have to, again, I'd look at it before the election to see where everything is. But there is an argument there that the thing to buy, depending on who wins. Conversely, if Kamala was to win, then I think those coins would also not do that well. So those are the ones which I would look at. L1s again. L1s did quite well off the bounce here. So maybe things like Sui, Ton, Say, maybe these are the coins you could also look at if you're not just looking at memes.
Brian on the Real Vision website, can OSF do a kickflip? I don't know. I could try, and we can end the show on that if you like.
Yeah. Get the 16-year-old video back up. It'll just look exactly the same.
All right. Last comments from Vano. Hath the noble Lord Vishnu forsaken us?
God, I didn't even look at that one. Where is it? Where is it right now?
Last time I checked, it was still at like a 50 million market cap. I don't know.
We're just down 50% on the week then.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, look,
things are down
meme
95%. So
yeah, Solana meme coins got really like. If you weren't following this Trump coin,
47
hurt a lot of people, and a lot of liquidity got kind of taken out. I think from a lot of different meme coins this week. So a lot of them are down big in the Solana meme coins.
Well, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for tuning into REKT Vision. Make sure you're following us on X, OSF_REKT, REKT Mando, Real Vision. And make sure you sign up to realvision.com/RVC. That will give you access to our exclusive monthly AMA that we do. But otherwise, we will see you guys next Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 4:30 p.m. British Summer Time. Have a great weekend, everyone. We didn't crush the market. It's a little bit lower, but we didn't absolutely nuke it this time like we have done in the past. So, let's hope things are good for the weekend.
All right. See you next week, guys.
Make large crypto trades with Kraken OTC. Execute orders of more than 100,000 off the open exchange through our premium OTC trading service. Get 24/7 access to deep liquidity, minimal slippage, and competitive execution and settlement services. Private and secure trading options include chatting securely with our trade desk for a personalized high-touch service, or use our self-service RFQ for super fast, automated OTC trading. Non-investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss and is offered to U.S. customers through Payward Interactive Inc. For more information, go to realvision.com/Kraken OTC.